What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. So we're here at the penultimate episode of Survivor Season 48. The finale coming up next week. Last week looked like, again, like a move could be brewing, but again, nothing really happened. Stuck with the status quo and Mary going home. So we're now at the final 6. But before we do jump into this episode, if you could just hit that like and subscribe button down there. More Survivor content on the channel as we move towards the finale next week. We'll have another video or so before the finale next week as well, previewing said finale, what we think might happen, if it'll be as cookie cutter as it seems like this second half of the season has been, or if we think any surprises could be happening. And good start with this episode, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a video. Now let's just jump into this episode, but right into it. The final 6 arrive back at camp. Mitch says that he's been waiting to make a move, and now is the time. Is it too late though? Eva didn't use her safety without power, so she no longer can use that, but still has her idol in this game. She's ready to cut down the other members that are not in her fort. The talk the next morning is to get Mitch out at the next tribal council. Kyle says it's time to play with a little more of his head instead of his heart. Shaheen is complaining, saying if this is another arm-based challenge, then, what did I work all this time to get my legs looking like this for? I don't know, kind of a little bit of foreshadowing, I guess, here to fast forward a little bit, but Mitch says to Shaheen, hey, we all talked about getting to 6 and then making a move, and so now's that time. We are at 6. Camilla and Kyle say the only person they're really afraid of is Joe, but doesn't know if Shaheen is getting antsy, and kind of feels like Shaheen and Kyle are playing a game of chicken, as Kyle says. The reward challenge time, beautiful Survivor storm in the middle of the ocean. Reward challenge, the reward is burgers with all the fixins, beer, wine, cheesecake. Get to spend the night at the sanctuary as well, and then you get your letters from home. Really tough new challenge. I don't think I've seen this before, but really fun to see it hanging over the water there, and it comes down to Kyle and Shaheen. And would you look at that? Shaheen wins reward in a pretty much arm-based challenge that he was complaining about coming into this. That's what I was referring to with the foreshadowing there. But Shaheen wins the reward, picks Joe and Kyle to go on the reward, and at the sanctuary they enjoy the food, get their letters from home. Emotional always, seeing the letters from home, and appreciate them sharing some of these stories that their families wrote to them in those letters, and what those letters meant to them. And back at camp, Camilla and Mitch don't understand why Shaheen chose Joe and fed him and get him rest going into this immunity challenge when everyone seems to know that Joe seems like the biggest threat at this point in this game, and playing this game with knuckleheads, as Mitch says, and feels like he just handed Joe $1 million, referring to Shaheen. Camilla says if Joe wins immunity, Shaheen may be going home. Eva feels that the boys went out on the town and left her home with the parents. Shaheen says to Joe that is there any benefit of getting rid of Kyle? Joe doesn't think that either of them are losing to him at 3. Shaheen says that he has been patient in this game, but is it all gas, no brakes time? Now him and Kyle are in the middle. Shaheen says that there's no point for them to go after each other, so perfect for them to work together. However, Kyle has been suspicious of him since he went through his bag earlier in the game, but really could come down to this game of chicken and who makes the move first. Shaheen says you don't read your family letters and go, yeah, let me just hand Joe $1 million. Shaheen says that he thinks the only play at 6 is to get Eva out. Now Kyle knows that he's ready to make a move, but doesn't want to make his move that he's referring to. Kyle has to beat him to the punch, and he's the punchline, so he needs to paint a target on Shaheen's back, even with Shaheen saying, is this the move in terms of getting Eva out to win $1 million? So now Kyle's agenda is to paint the target here on Shaheen. Next morning they return to camp. Kyle says that he didn't sleep much because he was thinking of everything that needed to get done. Runs right to Camilla after the pleasantries and wants to kind of undermine Joe's game. Now that Shaheen wants to play, using that to their advantage, and wants to get rid of Shaheen without any blood on himself or Camilla's hands. Now he says, what if he says that Shaheen showed Camilla an idol and wants to make a move? And then it'll look like Kyle and Camilla saved Joe and Eva. Risky move, but this could set up a lot of possibilities then, especially going forward at 5. Joe heads to the beach to talk to his sister who has recently passed and wants to start the healing process, as he says. He kind of went through, what his sister, went through and how she passed away during the episode, and he was being vulnerable with that, and again grateful that Joe was willing to be vulnerable like that and share his sister's story, his story, here on Survivor and for all of us to hear. So again, really grateful that Joe was able to be vulnerable like that for himself, but also for us to witness that as well. So that was an emotional moment there, and we head to the immunity challenge. Spot in the final 5 and the finale on the line. Shaheen is in the lead going into the final part of the challenge. Joe and Kyle are right behind him, and Joe wins his 4th individual immunity, one off of tying an elite record of 5. Securing a spot in the final 5, see if he can tie that next week or possibly break that record. But Camilla says, would Joe have dominated if he wasn't fed and rested? Maybe not, so Shaheen might have sealed his own fate in this one with his reward challenge pick. Back at camp, Kyle needs to get to Joe first, but Shaheen has been working with Joe since day 1, so they know that this could be a tough move. But Kyle tells Joe that Shaheen flipped and spills some of what Shaheen said at the reward about, trying to split up Joe and Eva. And then he brings in the part that Shaheen has an idol and told Camilla part. Now, this is the lie. The first half, he was actually telling the truth for the most part. Then the second half, this is the part that they're making up that they have to play off, which we've seen Kyle and Camilla do earlier this season and kind of working this game kind of from the background. So another move that they need to make and kind of elaborate on this lie. So says that Shaheen showed Camilla an idol and wants to make a move. Joe takes it in, processes it, and says, give me 30 minutes to kind of think about everything. He tells Eva everything, and so now they're trying to figure out who they trust. Eva says that she has a better feel for Kyle and can trust Kyle more in her gut. Joe agrees. Joe talks to Camilla and he seems to buy it. She tells Joe that Shaheen said no one can sit at the end next to Joe. Joe asks Shaheen if there's anything, in the mix other than the status quo of getting Mitch out. He says no, if we're the 4 strong, then, we get Mitch, nothing to worry about. Joe asks if I didn't have immunity, would it still be Mitch? He didn't bite and stuck to the original story. Shaheen says, is there something more going on that I don't know about? Joe's like, I'll get to the bottom of it. And Shaheen wasn't vibing with what, the way I guess Joe was talking to him. And Shaheen then tells everyone that it bothered him how Joe talked to him. And Shaheen talks through if Eva would be better, but believes that Mitch would be the smarter move when he's talking here with Kyle. Camilla makes a good point, though, that Joe and Eva are the powerful duo, that everyone sees in this game, but they're kind of just sitting there, as she says. And her and Kyle are working the game hard. Joe asks Eva, what if Kyle and Camilla are just making all this up? Something was cooking behind the scenes, but by who, as Joe says. Before we head to Tribal Council, Eva feels good with the people she's built this trust with. Kyle talks about the fact that, we've been so personal throughout this game that has made it hard, and that there could be some paranoia, coming up at this point in the game. We see Joe intently listening to both Shaheen and Kyle trying to decipher what is the truth. Shaheen goes home with 4 votes for Shaheen and 2 votes for Mitch. So Shaheen goes home, hits his Survivor background singing music on the way out. Thought that was a fun moment that they left in there after he got voted out. And I think Shaheen is a really fun, good player. I would like to see him get out here for another shot. I don't know about 50, but, a second chance season down the line, he's one of the players from this season that I would enjoy to see back out on this beach at some point. So it was fun to watch him this season. I think he is a really good player. So Shaheen goes out at 6, and next week we have the finale. We're down to the final 5. Heading into the finale next week, Camilla saying that my best shot is if we don't sit next to each other. Is she talking to Kyle? That's what it kind of seems like. Epic showdown, as Eva says. So I do think it'll be a good finale and a good finish. We'll see I think what I got from that little preview there is, will it be Kyle and Camilla? What can they do at 5? In my opinion, when they did this move, if they were to get out, if Kyle and Camilla were able to pull this out and get through, and not with the 4, but if they were able to make a move, either get out Shaheen like they did, or get out a Joe or an Eva, should I say. If they were able to do that, then really it's here at 5. It's like, all right, you're here at 5. You have Mitch, who's kind of been playing, he's kind of been playing the middle, or, whatever you want to say here. And so now at 5, you have the chance, hey, we can get one of these 2 strong people out now, in terms of people in Joe and Eva, who have been towards the top of running this game. But now kind of the tricky part comes in here is that Eva still has her immunity idol. So if one of them wins immunity and the other one doesn't, you got that immunity idol that they're going to play for one another. So they both keep on moving on to the final four and at least have a shot at the final three. So if one of them, or if both of them, should I say, does lose the immunity challenge, then I think that's where it gets interesting. So a lot will come down to the final five immunity challenge, kind of how this game ends. I do hope Kyle and Camilla stick together. They've been my two favorite players this whole season, kind of how they've been able to be behind the scenes and keep this, number one, alliance member, should, or however, whatever words you want to, describe, their alliance as, but, kind of keep that under wraps. And I like the idea of keeping it under wraps and, working the game and some of the moves they've been able to pull off this season, keeping it under wraps and not revealing it now. I mean, they haven't revealed it yet, and we're in the final five. So, I mean, if they can save that and they can both get to final three, or for sure if one of them can at least get to final three, then I think they have a really good shot there. But I think that's the question. Will they turn on each other, or will they, make a move here at five to go into the final four with a shot at least fire making, and then the final three? And then will Joe and Eva, who have been running this game for the most part, will they slide into the final three? I think that's kind of the main storylines here as we go into the finale. Should be an interesting finish, but I will have a video out before the finale next week, kind of just giving my previews and predictions for the episode. If we should get any more, I'm sure we will get any more teasers, for the episode coming up next Wednesday. But just kind of brief, won't dive too deep into it because I'll talk about it more in that video. Right now, I think if Kyle or Camilla, I hope both of them get there, but I just have a feeling, I think at the end of the day, I think they both can get there, but I think if both of them get there, I think they could be, because I think they'll have similar stories. I think they'd kind of be close to, splitting votes. And I think because Camilla could talk so well, because I think Kyle has, he's been the one that's been in that main majority for alliance, I guess, if you will. So, but they've done, stuff for each other. That's what has made their alliance, so good and fun, in my opinion. So I would like to see that battle there. But I do think if Joe does get to the final three, I think it'd be hard to see him not winning. And that's not even me saying. I think Joe, I really love Joe as a person. I like him as a Survivor player as well. But I'm not even saying that he was playing the best game out there. I find it hard to believe if Joe gets to the final three that he doesn't win. So I think that's where I sit right now. If I had to say right now, I'm going to go with Camilla. I think Camilla can win this thing. That's where I'm going to go right now. It'll probably change, or it could change, should I say, before I come out with my preview prediction video for the finale next week. But anyway, that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.